Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So far, we have seen the installation of the Arista NGFW as well as the out-of-box experience, and we have had a thorough familiarization with the user interface. As of right now, we have an unconfigured firewall, and the next logical step would be to configure the wide area network, the local area network, and DHCP and potentially DNS depending on how far the video gets. Once you open your NGFW interface, your user interface, the first thing that you want to do is you want to navigate to config and networks, and you're going to be greeted with the interface where your network interface cards are identified as a external and internal connection. Depending on the scenario that you have, for example, if you have a cable modem, all you need to do is leave the external configuration on DHCP and it will automatically pick up your internet connection. However, if you have fiber connectivity with some of the providers, which, like for example, Bell. I'm not sure which ones are in the United States, but for Canada, a provider like Bell, they use connectivity authentication via PPPoE on VLAN 35. So the way to configure that is actually fairly easy. So your external interface would remain addressed. However, you won't really have an address available. It will remain on DHCP, external, addressed, and is one interface checked. However, because you need to perform PPPoE authentication and provide a VLAN tag, what you have to do is slightly more different than if you were just plugging it into a cable modem. So you would be selecting the add tagged VLAN interface button over here, and it opens basically a new quote unquote new interface prompt. And for tutorial's sake, let's just call it Bell VLAN interface. And we have to select the parent interface, which is going to be the external facing network interface card. So we're just going to select external under parent interface. 802.1q tag is going to be whatever is the VLAN tag set by your internet service provider. In our case, it's going to be 35. Now, once we have that configured, we are going to check the WAN interface, and that's going to give us a couple of different options. And once we have that, we are just going to be presented with Alto, DHCP, static, and PPPoE. For the purpose of setting up PPPoE credentials and authentication, we're just going to select the PPPoE radio button, and it's going to change the user interface just a little bit, and we're going to enter the details. If you want to use pure DNS, meaning pure DNS is the one that's provided by the upstream ISP servers, or if not, we can just say the Cloudflare servers, which are 1.0.0.1 and Cloud 1, and leave the IPv4 option, not traffic exiting this interface, and bridged peers. And once that is complete, you just click on done, and you click on save, and you wait for the gateway to refresh. And it's not really going to do it in my scenario because I have it virtualized. I don't have an ISP provided fiber connection, so for me it's not going to connect. However, for you, if you are adding it to what's it called? An ONT box. Like for example, Bell customers that are um under the small business plan, and those who have the 1 gig plan from the residential sales team. Um, if you have the ONT, you're just gonna plug directly into your WAN port, and if you have a residential plan, you're just going to grab your little GBIC and plug it into an SFP card. Make sure that it auto negotiates to 1 gigabit per second, unless you have a higher plan. But then we're getting into a couple complications. If you have the 1.5, you gotta have a 2.5 gig compatible network interface card. If you have 3 or 5, you have to have a 5 gigabit capable network interface card. And if you have 8 gigabyte for the Toronto region, you gotta have a 10 gigabit capable network interface card. So now that it has saved, it won't really, I don't know if it's a bug or anything like that. It won't really pick up an address from the upstream. You will be only able to view it if you go to whatismyip.com, and I don't know, it's been reported multiple times, and it hasn't really been addressed, I suppose. So maybe in a future release it will be. So for me, I'm going to delete it for now, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So the next step of this is going to be setting up the local area network interface. In your case, you're going to be selecting the internal labeled interface, and you're going to click the little pencil button for edit. You don't really have a choice. You have to leave it at static. And once you enter your address and your net mask, you will be coming under DHCP configuration, and you're going to create your ranges. Your one range. If you want to do any overrides, DNS override, and as the duration. If you have another DHCP server, like for example Windows server with the DHCP role, or maybe you have a Linux server, you will just click on relay, and then enter the IP address for that server, or you can straight up disable it, and that would be the equivalent as selecting a relay, because it will be offloading the work to it. In my scenario though, I needed to do DHCP as well. If you want to add any options, I'm not really sure yet how to work the additional options, but that's something that I'm going to be diving deep into later into this little series that I'm going to be creating with regards to configuring different firewalls. But for now, we're going to keep it basic. We're going to keep it simple. Set up your IPv4 address on the interface, set up the DHCP range, the lease duration, and any additional basic configurations that you want. Click on done, and don't forget to click the save button. Next step is going to be the DNS portion of it. Step one, and this is kind of what I always recommend, is make sure that you properly identify the firewall on your network. So I have left it as default, but in your case it would be something like gateway or GW or whatever it is, right? It's basically just how the firewall is going to be identified in your DNS server. Once that is done, make sure that you press your save button so that your changes are applied. And the last step that you want to take care of is going under DNS server, and adding any potential static entries, or maybe manually adding a DNS server. Basically what you do is you click on add, you enter the domain name. So for example, myoffice.localareanetwork. and then you enter the IP of the server. So 192.168.5.5. This is just an arbitrary number. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's exactly. Now, something that I've noticed is that for the DNS server to properly work, first you have to add it into static entries as controller dot dn and dot my office dot LAN with the IP of 192.168.5.5, and then you have to add it as a domain DNS server. The order isn't really important as long as they're both there. And then last thing, make sure that you save so that your settings are applied. If there's any static lease entries that you need to do, all you need to do is come under the DHCP server tab, and under DHCP server, make sure that the sub-tab server is selected. Have your MAC address ready with the IP that you want it to have and a small description on what the item is, or sorry, what the workstation is. On the right side, what you're going to see is you're going to see all of the leases in memory. All the leases in memory, meaning both static and dynamic. So if I have another work machine that is connected to this firewall, it's going to be listed here as well. I currently don't, so you can only see the one machine. Well, that's pretty much it for the basic setup of your wide area network interface, your local area network interface, setting up the host name, basic DNS and DHCP settings. Thank you for joining me on this one. I'll see you guys in the next one.